we back, I guess. That's how you show up. You be like,
This is how you show up when your podcast audience are like your girlfriends and boyfriends inside of your head, and good friends and them friends inside of your head. You just kind of show up. So what's up with y'all? Y'all good? Let me
right.
do my Tabitha Brown impression. Hey y'all. Y'all all right? Everybody okay? All right. Eat y'all veggies. Oh no. No meat now. Mm-mm. Keep it raw if you can now. All right now.
uh,
How
shout
you
out.
doing?
I'm good. Shout out to our good sis Tabitha Brown, where you can't get none of her stuff in my local Target
Girl,
because
please.
everybody.
Let me tell you.
I had
It's
went to
an
my local.
item.
It is an item. I went to my local Target looking for one specific thing because I was not going to be Tabitha Brown hoarder of products and services.
Hmm.
I really just wanted one thing and could not find my one thing. But as I traveled throughout the store, and I don't know who out here doing this, but y'all got caught because I didn't seen Tabitha Brown merchandise tucked in other places.
Girl, okay.
Why is the Tabitha Brown dress rolled up in the best triangle I've ever seen underneath the vacuum cleaner box?
Oh my, that's hilarious.
I'm
And
not
you know,
going.
did nobody do that but a black woman that said, I got places to be, things to do, and I'm gonna wear this Tabitha Brown hair dress.
For
Okay?
sure.
And
But
since I don't get my pay,
come on, that's
I
where I
don't
was
get my
going.
chime ringing in. The direct deposit ain't hit. Since things have not been received in my accounts receivable department.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sis,
I was
somebody
going
said,
there.
I'm going to have this and ain't nobody else.
This is my
Lord have
dress. I
mercy.
am
This is my
claiming
dress.
it.
Listen,
I am claiming
listen.
it.
And you know, it was probably a saint that laid hands on it. Now, Lord, if it be your will,
Right.
this dress will be right here in the name. Okay.
Mm-hmm. She
Be
said,
believing.
yes,
Lord, don't let
Lord.
nobody from stock up, Father. Hide it from the stock people,
Yes,
Jesus.
Lord. Yes, Lord.
Listen, honey, back in my younger days, child, I know I done show enough laid hands on some merchandise, not for a 5 finger discount,
For
but show
sure.
enough for a 5 finger, Lord bless it. Put your whole
Mm-hmm.
holy hand on this, and I'm gonna wait for this thing to come on sale. And when it come on sale, I'm gonna have the money for it, girl. It's worked out for me a few good
Mm-hmm.
times. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
try Jesus, not me. Try
Try
Jesus.
Jesus, not me. And you know what I've put my prayer on for a long, long time?
What?
These doggone student loans that
Lord.
the society told me that
Mm.
I needed to go get all of this education that costs money, and because my parents did not have said money for me to go to all of the colleges to get all of the university trainings and such.
Oh, yes.
And I have prayed and I have written to every single elected president since I was able to vote after I
Mm-hmm.
graduated from college to figure out what they were going to do to address student loan debt. And
Mm.
there's been a lot of activity on the interwebs today.
The interwebs have been jumping, which leads us to a very special edition of Survivance.
Yes.
You know, we have been covering stories like we do.
Hmm.
And this moment, we wanted to capture survivance. How are people out here making it with this new news and in light of and everything that has happened? So let's start from the beginning.
Yes.
Student loans is a financial burden that most Black and Brown people have been talked into. And yes, I
Hmm.
do say talked into. These people are your financial aid counselors, your guidance counselors, you're this and you're that. When you take out these student loans, whether it's subsidized, unsubsidized, it could be private loan, it could be public loan, it could be through the
Yes.
U.S. Department of Education, it could be through Sally Mae and Freddie Mac and them. Well, I'm sorry, that's mortgage.
Them too. Just
But
add them in there.
listen, but Sally Mae, for sure, Sally Mae had a little piece of the
Yes,
pie
for
for
sure.
student loans. So again, we know that people have had to take out loans to finance their education. And it was not only financing their education, but also trying to provide a cost of living, a supplement to a cost of living.
For sure. For
Okay.
sure. For sure.
We, as two educated PhD Black women,
Yes.
will tell you right now, we are one of fewer than 10% in the nation to even have a
Yes.
PhD,
Yes.
number one. These are verifiable statistics from the National Educational Clearinghouse.
Mm-hmm.
In the year that I graduated, there were less than 4% of
Mm-hmm.
all PhDs in 2015. Less than 4% of all PhDs were Black women the year that
Mm-hmm.
I graduated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whether you had a fellowship, bless God, whether you had a TA, teaching assistantship, whether you had a research fellowship, a grant, graduate assistantship. Oh, they're real cute with all the titles and all of that. It does not give you a full-time education. Now, let's also add in this caveat. We're setting the stage to give you the news because we're going to walk through the announcement from the Biden administration that there is debt relief on the horizon for student loans.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try and walk through this the best way we can with our understanding. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know us here. We do our homework. Even when we do, we will find that this will be an issue that will continue to unfold because
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be many more conversations about it. But let's continue with setting the stage. So we get the promise of an education.
Yes.
We get the promise of going to school and, don't you say pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Well, here's a opportunity for you to do it. I can specifically remember my mother being terminally ill growing up. And the financial aid counselor, literally, this was something I verified with a family member. They literally guilted, pressured, pushed my mother into signing because it was, what if something happens? And, wouldn't you want this cushion,
Mm-hmm.
this student loan, this little cushion, just in case you were to pass on, et cetera, during her education? Well, that did end up happening. And that was the year that I took out student loans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've all been there to try and finish. I also don't know how many people I know that have not finished even an associate's degree
Yep.
because the student loans and trying to have a minimum wage job, etc., or trying to raise your economic profile, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All of these different things, please continue,
Mm-hmm.
sis, to set the stage. We're going into the day's news, but we are setting the stage. Anecdotally, we're sharing, and then we'll come in with some more facts. Sis, take it.
For sure. Educationdata.org is an organization that vets and fact checks educational statistics. So we have a statistical analysis of student loan debt by race. This is current news published as of June 2022. According to educationdata.org, it reports that Black and African American college graduates owe an average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. Further, 4 years after graduation, 48% of Black students owe an average of 12.5% more than they borrowed
That's double-digit figure percentage. Okay.
from
Did y'all
interest.
catch that math?
From
Of
interest.
interest. Did you catch that math?
Black and African American student borrowers are the most likely to struggle financially due to student loan debt, with 29% making monthly payments of $350 or more.
A whole car note or
A,
more.
a whole car note. Or back when I was in school, you could get you a nice apartment for
Listen,
$350.
wait, we don't want to tell the good people our ages
Yeah,
like that.
we
They know we aunties. But you're right.
yes.
And that was with the electric. you know, continue, please.
Over 50% of Black student borrowers report their net worth is less than they owe in student loan debt.
Less than what they owe. This is the game that we are in. We are drowning in the student debt. We are now graduated. These statistics are post graduation.
Yes.
So now we have at least a bachelor's degree. We are in various fields, teaching, education, engineering, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We are in various fields, and yet still 12% increase more than what we originally borrowed, what we owe, thanks to interest. All of these things keep adding up. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the student loan interest compounds nervedly
Mm-hmm.
daily,
Mm-hmm.
daily, daily.
Daily
Sometimes it
compounding.
goes up,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it goes down,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it goes this, your income based opportunities, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Black and brown people are paying on average $350 a month
Or more.
or
Mm-hmm.
more towards student loans. Let me put that in perspective. There was news today from NBC News, actually, that had a quote that said, transportation costs are on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
Personal vehicle ownership, used or new cars, is on the rise. The average cost, even with the good credit, with the good credit, $687 a month. That's the going average price for a car note.
Mm-hmm.
So you have individuals that are paying $350 or more per month. Sis, I don't know about you, but in my grocery store, in my Kroger, in my good Kroger, the prices are high. A 4-pack of chicken breast was $17 on sale with my
Everything,
good Kroger card.
everything is way more
Thank you.
expensive. The packaging is smaller, the
Yes,
amount and quantity is smaller,
lots less.
but the price has sometimes almost doubled.
Whole dollars, not cents, whole dollars. Which brings me to my next point. When you talk about the news today, and this is in part $10,000 forgiven for student loans if you make $125,000 or less based on your 2021 or 2020 taxes. That's where they're going by.
Yes.
It is $25,000 if you were a Pell Grant recipient.
Mm-hmm.
that portion of your loans, that amount will be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
We do not know yet if you had to be a consistent Pell Grant recipient, or if it is you got the Pell Grant even that one good time and
Mm-hmm.
it's worth $25,000 forgiven in
Mm-hmm.
debt. And there's an important caveat there. You didn't always qualify for the
Mm-mm.
Pell Grant. Just like everything else, the government loves a good formula.
Oh yes.
Instead of canceling all debt for everybody for any reason, just because we have survived a pandemic, we got the monkeypox are running. We've survived one of the most horrific presidential experiences prior to this administration currently, President Biden currently, and
Mm-hmm.
Kamala Harris, Vice President currently. But the folk before them put us through it.
Yes.
So there's a lot. We are bailing out. We've been using that term. We want to use our words here
Mm-hmm.
because words matter. We've been bailing out student loan forgiveness for those who got taken by the previous administrators, previous president. We don't mention his name still on this space and in this entity. They bailed the people that got swindled by him out.
Mm-hmm.
They've bailed out several Christian universities, my Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Have mercy on your very souls.
Yes.
And I really do mean that. They've bailed out DeVry just recently.
Mm-hmm.
We have been bailing out, bailing. Oh, we love a good bailout, but not when it comes to Black and brown folks getting some relief. Now, in your information, I'm sure you have come across the statistic that shares what this type of relief really would do. The NAACP, the good folks at the NAACP, called for a minimum of $50,000 in debt relief. Every borrower, every debtor, every
Mm-hmm.
I owe them.
Mm-hmm.
The minimum $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
With that, it would increase the household incomes, particularly for single women, particularly single Black women,
Mm-hmm.
by some 43%.
Mm-hmm.
We are not in a position to play with this. We really aren't. It is not okay for people to make statements like, girl, I'm going to just have student loans until I die. Or that's the only way that they're going to get paid off. That's the only way that it's going to get done. I know someone who fought tooth and nail to qualify, even from her deathbed, to qualify for the extension, for the grace. For those who are disabled, there is a clause of grace
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to petition and have your student loans forgiven because you're unable to work or because you have a recognized disability.
Mm-hmm.
From her deathbed, she said, if I could get this over here situated, the student loans, then I'd have enough money to bury myself when the time comes. She had a terminal illness.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody should have to be making these decisions. Nobody should have to be making the decisions. Do I eat this week
Mm-hmm.
or do I pay student loans? No one at all should have to feel the pressure because we did this. If people took out student loans, now, of course, with everything, there's going to be some cutting the food.
Yes.
There's going to be some cutting the food. But people who genuinely took out student loans to honestly help and do the right things with it, It's always been their intention to pay it back for the most part, for most people, but the earnings never caught up with it.
I would gather, because I can go back to my 17-year-old self, because I was 17 when I was
Hmm.
a freshman in college. And I didn't understand that when I got out of college and decided that medical school wasn't for me, that I was going to end up taking a $18,000 job, and that was like the going market rate for careers post college, because college was always sold to you as the pathway forward to economic freedom. And so many of us, especially coming from homes where our parents were maybe blue collar workers and making it do what it do every day, we believed that we were going to be in a better position because we had this piece of paper that said we had been trained or had been exposed or experienced, knowledgeable, wiser, whatever the case, skilled to be able to earn dollars. But when you graduate from school in a system that is rooted and based in racism, where you, a Black college graduate, paired against a white college graduate, and you can go into the same job and they offer you sometimes 40% below what they're paying the white counterpart with the same degree, same level of experience, same background, same training, sometimes even same university. How is it that you're supposed to maintain the same quality of life when you already are starting on bad footing? So I feel like in a lot of ways, I was sold a dream that certainly has helped me in life. Having the education has helped to put me in places and spaces that maybe I would not have had access to otherwise. But it's not like I'm making Beyonce money, right? It's like I'm just making enough to not have to live in a shack in the poorest social economic community in my town, right?
Right, right.
But even in trying to maintain what I deem to be a decent quality of life, it doesn't allow for much excess because I've chosen a career pathway called public service. And I understood going in, once I made a decision what my career trajectory was going to be post medical school, that I was not going to be in the highest paid individuals, that I was not going to be in the highest paid career, options or opportunities. But
We chose feelings over fire.
we chose people. We chose
People, right.
wanting to help people
Help. Yes.
over anything, which
Yes.
shows you how crazy and how upside down we are as a society on our thinking. That
Yes.
helping the people that need the most, you also earn the least. And that if you are in a for profit space or crook, like someone that we don't mention here who happened to end up being elected to the presidency, then you can live a very lavish lifestyle and you don't have to be responsible for anything that you do, say, or steal. So there's just some ineptness and upside downness to this whole process. I wanted to lay these statistics on you before we jump into point by point of this Biden relief package.
Perfect. Perfect. Go ahead.
So let's talk about in our two states. The listeners who know that we both are Midwest girls. I live in Illinois. Leticia lives in Michigan. In Illinois, $61.6 billion in student loan debt belongs to the state residents.
Wow.
So people who live up in my state, we owe the government, etc., $61.6 billion. The
And
the
for the people in the back, that's B as in B, 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 B,
billion,
B.
billion. $37,757 is the average student loan debt per person.
Wow.
We have over 1.6 million student borrowers that live in Illinois. 54.5% of them are under the age of 35.
Under the age of 35. So there goes your argument about you Gen Zers, you baby, but no, under
Mhm.
35.
Mhm.
At this podcast, we over 45. Okay.
And we have 2.6% that owe more than $200,000 in student loans.
And please be clear, those are your medical doctors, those are your nurses, those are your people that still come out in a profession that is helping people, still come out in a profession that is quite vital. If the pandemic hasn't taught us that
Anything.
anything at all, so we've got this. We're talking about individuals again that make a choice. Somebody had said, well, you should have chose a different major. You're the one that wanted to write. You wanted to tell stories. You're the one that wanted to tell stories and give people, oh, they just dogged me all out, sis. Just got me good. But you know what? Even then, even with me choosing the career path that I have, even with me going back, even the times that I went back to school, it was still with that same mentality. If I get one more piece
One
of
more,
paper,
one
it
more.
will allow me and it will increase my earnings by this much even more. It will do this by this even more. It will do that, still was my mentality.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics that you mentioned, particularly for Chicago, please go back to that grand total because I wanna also do some figging over here. You
Mm-hmm.
said 64 million
I said
billion.
$61.6 billion in student loan debt belongs to residents in the state of Illinois.
Boom.
In Michigan, similar. In Michigan, $51 billion in student loan debt belongs to its state residents.
Michiganders, 51 billion. B as in boy, oh boy. They got us good. Wow. And that's a 10 and some change $1 billion difference. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. Midwest, when you talk about public land grant institutions,
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about, because that was supposed to be the great equalizer,
Mm-hmm.
okay? A little bit of history.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you listening, there is a congressional legal appointed clause that created land grant universities. Land grant universities have been they were the subsidized
Mm-hmm.
funding
Yes.
to democratize education.
Yes.
Because at one point, going to college was simply for the bourgeoisie. It was
Mm-hmm.
to learn classics, literature,
Mm-hmm.
instrumentation, such
Mm-hmm.
as the harp.
Mm-hmm.
It was to be refined. And it
Mm-hmm.
was only to be really for white men that had money or certain others who had certain status financially, the same stuff, but on a different scale.
Mm-hmm.
As we progress into the land grant universities and public colleges, that's where a lot of your HBCUs were funded. That's where a lot of your universities and schools, state schools, were funded. And the gift was open the doors to everybody. We gave you the land to do it.
Mhm.
We've provided the funding every year within the budget from Congress and the state's legislators and various other local funds. We've
Mhm.
made sure that open it up,
Mhm.
open it up.
Mhm.
It took affirmative action in the 60s and the 70s. It took people marching and coming down. It took the doors of the democratized education to be open yet again, more legislation. Why? Because of that unequal, that bad footing that you talked about.
Yep.
We come into life with a deficit. We try and take the path to get us out of the deficit that was promised for generations.
Yes.
This was going to break, the black folks were saying it around my way. This was going to break generational curses, okay? You get you a degree, and by and large, it did in terms of being educated,
Yes.
but it did very little to push the needle financially for a lot of us, in my family
Absolutely.
in particular. When you look at those people that have the highest amount of debts, the engineers of society, the folks that have careers that we so value so much, which breaks my heart because I always think none of them would be able to read, write, or do whatever they do without a teacher
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
or without that professor that
Mhm.
gave them that extra, that
Mhm.
professionalizing, that additional critical and expert knowledge. Come on.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
We were supposed to be elevating ourselves through education.
Yes.
We are products of the generation that weren't told that they could do any and everything.
Yes.
They ushered that in.
Mhm.
My mother, your mother, they were housewives. You grew up, you prayed real good, and you got you a husband, and
Yes.
you had as many babies as the Lord could bless you with.
Yes.
Okay? So we think about that. That generation of women came into careers,
Mhm.
came into professionalizing. I can remember my mother wanted to be a paralegal court reporter, honey.
Yes.
She was headed to the courthouse
Mhm.
because they had a training on the
Mhm.
job as a part
Mhm.
of affirmative action.
Right.
And if you knew how to work a cash register, which she did because she loved working in retail,
Mhm.
if you had an aptitude, that's where some of the women who chose to work or had to work, that's what they did.
Mhm.
Or when goods and services or goods were manufactured in the US, my grandmother and her sisters sold gloves for isotoners
Mhm.
down in Mississippi. That's where
Mhm.
isotoner slippers were made, isotoner gloves,
Mhm.
slippers, and those products.
Mhm.
You could have a professional job. My dad started off as a welder before he was a corrections officer.
Mhm.
He went from blue collar, professional trade, I
Mhm.
mean, trade to a blue collar
Mhm.
professional job.
Mhm.
It was unionized. He
Yes.
wore a uniform every day, etc. Your father,
Yes.
he was an engineer.
Mhm.
He was an engineer that came along at a time when black men or men of Dominican Republican descent
Mhm.
were not in places of position of power, status, etc. So you compound all of that. We are
Absolutely.
the generation that persisted. We are the generation that said, baby, get this education because it's going to make it easier. It's going to make it better. We're the generation that was supposed to reach back and take care of our parents
Yes.
with this good education.
Yes. And I know so many people who have master's degrees, who have
Come on.
PhDs, even a
Hmm.
couple. who are just struggling economically because the education of yesteryear doesn't hold value in 2022. And most of us are still holding on to debt from yesteryear. And if we're not able to earn money for today's year to pay off debt from yesteryear, then we again are continuously upside down. And most of us who are in our generation right now, we're on the getting to be on the other side. We're closer to retirement than we are to starting a career. So there's not a lot of opportunity within like structured employment that exists that's going to matriculate you into a different tax space that will pay you enough to be able to address your student loan debt. I'm not talking about people who are participating in the great resignation. Y'all go. I appreciate that. Go on and quit them jobs y'all was working and get you
Go
some
ahead.
training and find you a new
Hmm.
place to be. Because I know that
Yes.
there are people in this time who have switched careers because the pandemic forced them to do so, or at least provided an opportunity for them to do so. And they are doing amazing. And we have much love for people who are
Yes.
moving their life forward and are receiving earnings and wages that are helping them and their families have good quality of life.
Yes.
But there are some of us who are too far gone
Ooh.
to one side that changing in the trajectory again, even if we did, it's not going to provide us with a $500,000 salary to help us to address the balance on our student loan. The other thing that I wanted to point out about what has led us down this pathway
Mm-hmm.
is no presidential body or Congress associated has looked at student loan debt as an opportunity to boost the economy. Remember, I said at the top of this episode,
Yes.
I've been writing to every single president since I've been able to vote after I graduated to ask them what they were going to do about around student loan debt
Yes.
because it not only was pervasive with my peer group, but it was causing economic distress. And we have old Joe, President Joe Biden, has come forth with this solution, but it was not the promise. The promise was we're going to get rid of all of the student loan debt, give everyone some clean slatage so that we can boost our economy and remove the pressures of having to pay back money that you'll never be able to pay back based on our current wage system and career opportunities. It's
Period.
impossible.
The math ain't mathing.
The math ain't been mathing for a long time, but yet these predatory student loans have been granted because we're still preaching and teaching the same message that in order for you to make it, Black people, you got to go to the college. You got to go up to the college. And I am not saying that the college experience, again, and every subsequent educational experience that I have endured has not had some worth, it has not had some value. What I'm saying is that what I can earn, even with all of these smarts and books and paperwork, will never be able to help me address the student loan debt that I had to endure and incur in order to get my primary degree.
Boom.
I still owe money on the bachelor's I have 4
Most
degrees.
people do. Most people do, though.
And
You're
so,
right. Most
and,
people do.
and that is problematic on so many levels. And the fact that we, the Americas, have been able to pitch a bailout for all types of things, the banks, the real estate industry, the automotive
Sis,
industry,
anybody. The tree cutters,
just anybody. If you
anybody.
connected to the right person, you can get some debt relief. But oh, baby, relieve some student loan debt, and all type of people have come out of the woodwork to talk about how it ain't fair.
Oh, it's not fair. I had to pay my student loans back, and I just finished paying them back. And I'm 97 now,
Mm.
and I heard that y'all getting ready to relieve the student debt. Well, 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 girl, sit down somewhere. Cause let me tell you something. The nursing home you in complaining from, ma'am, it's subject to be privatized. And need I remind you, because it's been a minute, you took out student loan debts when they was pushing buggies. Okay?
Sit down, Ernestine.
Ernestine, hush. This is not for you. Okay?
We're not talking to you
We're
about
not
what you
talking to
did.
you at
Thank
all.
thank you for your
Thank you for
service
coming.
and
Thank you for
coming
coming.
and paying off. But the who how we substantiate and acknowledge how public relief is issued is so interesting. People talk,
Very.
my daughter, she went and had to work 3 jobs and she had to pay off her student loans. And we don't understand why you ain't been paying out. Well, because when Becky got out of school,
Uh-huh.
Becky made
Mm-hmm.
$76,000.
Yeah. And also grandpa, because Becky is her, his favorite.
His
And like
favorite.
she earned the degree.
Oh my God. And for a
Like he
graduation
totally
gift,
promised her,
yes,
right?
she
You
got
can
a
have your trust fund
car,
early,
got a trust
like the
fund.
interest off of it only. So it's a lump sum of half a million.
Yes, it's
And also
amazing.
the condo in New York
In New
that
York, because
overlooks
that's where she's
Times
going
Square.
to work. Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
So, like, we have to acknowledge that there's some differences here. And considering that we still ain't really talked about the reparations here,
We haven't. If you wants to start a reparations conversation, you
this
can
is the
hit
good,
me up on the student loans. This would be a good place. This
this
would
would
be a
be
good
a
place.
great place to
A great
start.
place to talk about reparation. I'll take the calculation of 40 acres and a mule off my student debt, please.
Yes.
Thank you, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Absolutely. I think that that would be amazing. But
That would
today,
be wonderful. Yeah, today it's not
today,
it's
that's
not
not that's
it's
this
not
is
where we're at.
this is
It's
not
not where we
quite
are.
40 acres and a mule. This is
It's not.
it's probably I'm gonna equate this solution to one of those puffy weeds. You know the weeds where they got the puffy thing, then when the wind blow it blow away. It'd be like
Oh,
and
I
it be gone.
misunderstood you. I was like, sis, no, no, not that's not like that. It's
No, no, no. It's a one of those puffy whiskey weeds that where you feel like, ooh, is this
when the
a flower?
dandelion,
With the
yeah, when the
dandelion. Be like, is
yeah,
this a
turn.
flower? And then it blow away, and you like, oh no, this a weed. Just like that.
There you go.
I feel, I
Yes.
feel, I feel duped because according to the Biden Harris
Yes.
plan, there are
Yes.
three parts to this solution.
Hold on 1 second. Don't forget before you give them the solution, remind the people, good sis, what was their campaign promise? What did they tell people? What did they tell the good people that
That
they were going to do specifically
I
with
remember
the student loan debt? Please
they
quote that first and then proceed.
they told the people that student loan debt had been around for too long and that nobody
Mm,
had talked about it, addressed it, had done anything, but they were
Mm.
here because they understood
The
the
peoples.
people's needs. They was the
Mm.
people's champions over student loan. Now let me just say for the record, I ain't want to vote for that man, y'all. Listen, I'm
Mm-mm.
gonna just put it out there. He was not my choice. My choice was the other good sis,
Oh.
because
Mm-hmm.
her student loan plan spoke to me
Specifically,
specifically.
good Elizabeth Warren. Hey, Liz.
Hey, former
Hey, good sis.
candidate for president Liz Warren, we were voting for you because
Yes.
you, my good sis,
Teacher, education. She
teach,
got it. She
educate.
spoke everything.
She understood what was
Mm-hmm.
happening. But to where we are, there's three parts
Yes.
to this debt relief plan. They are issuing what they call the final extension of the student loan repayment pause.
Oh boy.
And we who have had a run in or two with somebody around that final notice,
We do thank you.
we do
We
thank
really
you.
do.
This part of the plan must be in red.
Yeah.
It's the final extension
The final, okay?
of the student loan repayment pause, which will end on December 31st of this year, 2022, with payments resuming in January 2023.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. No need to do
Welcome back.
nothing. No need to do nothing because we know who you are. And the pause will be ceased
Woo.
automatically. No
When I tell
worries.
you they knew where to find everybody, sis, can we just point out just a couple of little things
Mm-hmm.
before we? There's a couple of little funny things. Number one, they knew where to find everybody to pause it. They knew right
They
where we
did.
were,
They
didn't
did.
they?
They did.
And I'd also like to point out the economy didn't collapse.
Nope.
The government didn't shut down because
Did not.
all this what we owed. Matter of fact, you had so much money you sent it right on to Ukraine. God
Mm-hmm.
bless them. I want them to have help.
Mm-hmm.
You've helped with
Mm-hmm.
several other natural disasters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Please, prayers up for the people in Texas, my Lord, Dallas, and Houston. It's just all flooding out.
Mm-hmm.
People,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yes. So
good sis. So
part
that's a good part.
that's good. Part one.
That's part one. All right.
Part two. This is providing targeted debt relief to low and middle income families. And
Mm-hmm.
you alluded to this earlier in our conversation. So this is the breakdown. Borrowers are eligible for relief if their individual income is less than $125,000 or $250,000 for households. In their FAQ section for the part two, here are a couple of things to consider. To become eligible, your annual income must have fallen below $125,000 for individuals or $250,000 for married couples or head of households. If you received a Pell Grant, A being singular, if you received a Pell Grant in college and meet the income threshold, meaning $125,000 or less for individuals or $250,000 or less for married couples or head of households, you will be eligible for up to $20,000 in debt. If you did not
Relief.
relief, debt cancellation. If you did not receive a Pell Grant in college, but still meet the income threshold, you will be eligible for up to $10,000 in debt cancellation. What does the
See, it's
up
that
to
up
mean?
to. I
I'm
hate that up to.
I'm
See,
about
that
I'm
up
about to
to
give
is the
it to you,
catch.
sis. I'm about to
Oh,
get you the
okay.
up
Let me
to,
calm
break the
down.
up
Go
to.
ahead.
Your relief is capped at the amount of your outstanding debt. So if you owe $20,000 and you're eligible for $20,000, They will pay your $20,000 in debt cancellation and you should have a balance of zero. If you owe on your student loans $15,000, but you qualify for $20,000, I am sorry to report that they are not going to just pay that $15,000 and send you a check for $5,000. They are only going to pay up to what is the balance remaining on your student loan debt currently. Now, for most of us, we don't owe just $20,000 or $15,000.
And this is
So,
where the math start going fast. This
and
is where the
and
integers and all that stuff
and
start coming
so
in.
if you owe more than that, all they're going to do is make a $20,000 or a $10,000 payment based on your remaining balance.
And that's going towards the principal.
Now,
Sis, see that? See
sis, sis,
questions.
sis,
Because
there's
I don't know.
questions and they haven't provided the answers
Answers.
yet. If does this
They said the
bring,
phones crashed, the website crashed because folks been online
yes,
calling.
yes,
So we've got to
yes,
be patient out there. As we get information, please check back with us. We are going to be on this because not only does it affect us personally, but because of what we do. This is a survivance story. You all, it's
absolutely.
like we're waiting with bated breath to find out if we gonna be all right.
If we gonna be all right,
If we
which
gonna be all right and how much all right we gonna be.
and how much all right we gonna be. Now here comes part three.
Okay, part three.
Part three is to make the student loan system more manageable for current and future borrowers.
Oh, well, they need a task force volunteer because I have things to say.
Yes, and there's rules that fall under part three. Get ready for the rules, sis.
Uh-oh.
Rule number one, it would require that borrowers pay no more than 5% of their discretionary income monthly on undergraduate loans.
Discretionary income monthly. Now, I like that. That's nice.
Now,
5% cap. That's nice. That's good.
5%, right. This is down from the 10% available under the most recent income driven repayment plan. So no more than 5%.
That's good.
Rule number two, raise the amount of income that is considered non-discretionary income and therefore is protected from repayment,
Very good.
guaranteeing that no borrower earning under 225% of the federal poverty level, about the annual equivalent of $15 minimum wage for a single borrower, will have to
Hmm.
make a monthly payment. So this provides relief for our low wage earners.
These are the people who are also been deemed frontliners. Your
Absolutely.
grocery store workers, your bus drivers,
Many of which that have degrees.
many of which have degrees.
Correct. Note our statement at the middle of this episode where we talked about degrees from 20 years ago are some of them are obsolete in 2022.
Obsolete. Okay.
Okay.
Whole program done shut down. Whole college done went to
Went
something
away.
else.
Yes. Okay. Rule number three, as part of part three. Part three, let me remind you, listeners, again, make the student loan system more manageable for current and future borrowers. Rule number three, forgive loan balances after 10 years of payments instead of 20 years for borrowers with loan balances of $12,000 or less.
That's perfectly confusing to me.
It is confusing. What it's saying in short is that if you have a loan balance of $12,000 or less and you've already made 10 payments, but because the interest was highway robbery and you're still paying on those $12,000 or less loans, then they're going to give you a loan forgiveness because they understand that The
It's the
interest, the
interest.
interest has stolen all of your joy.
Amen. Joy
Amen.
snatching.
Joy
Mm,
snatching student loan
baby,
interest.
that interest. And that's another thing because the interest compounded so much every day, sis. I really don't even know what my original balance was.
Yes,
I really don't.
yes. And so this brings us to rule number 4 under part 3. Cover the borrower's unpaid monthly interest so that unlike other existing income driven repayment plans, no borrower's loan balance will grow as long as they make their monthly payments, even when that monthly payment is zero because their income is low.
What about if it's late and I have a story? I know someone who did everything that they were supposed to do. They followed the advice given to them at the time as a borrower. They followed the advice to become a civil servant, and you were eligible for certain monies to pay off your debt. That was one eligibility. They also followed along. If you do that and you make your payments on time for 10 years, then you get a portion of your interest forgiven and you get
Mm-hmm,
the this and the this and the that. This individual had a death in their family and needed that month's student loan money to contribute towards the expenses of the person's funeral.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
In 10 years, they missed one payment. Do you know that they became ineligible
mm-hmm,
for that government assistance? That payment where the if you work for a government entity, if you
mm-hmm,
work for a school district, you've heard this. I fell for that. They really were only talking about K through 12 schools and certain K through 12 schools anyway.
yeah,
But the language that was put out there, that's the fine print. The language that was put out there was if you go to teach, if you are a teacher, a professor at a underserved or an institution that serves underserved,
yeah, yeah,
underperforming, you know, it your loans would be forgiven after 10 years of service.
mm-hmm,
That was
mm-hmm,
not true.
yeah,
That
mm-hmm,
was not true. That was not true. How many people fell for that? How many teachers? I'd love to see the breakdown by professions. I haven't quite found that yet. Again, all of this is pushing and rushing around. So we're going to do a four-part series,
yes,
as we had talked about at the beginning.
mm-hmm,
So we need to break down further. I want to look at statistics by profession, by degree type, because that's also a discrepancy. Degrees in the humanities, which are again those degrees that lead to careers that ultimately help people or in some type of collaborative community based, all for the good,
mm-hmm,
they don't pay as much.
yes,
We pay our athletes more. We pay the people that take care of our athletes more, except for the teachers,
mm-hmm,
sports physicians, orthopedists, uh, doctors, rehab specialists, they all make now they are in the 125,000 and above
yeah,
usually,
yeah,
especially if you're a
mm-hmm,
team doctor, etc. My point being, there is so much to this. They weren't going to just say, here, $25,000 off, everybody done.
yes,
No, we got to have all of these ins and outs and caveats. As we continue this series, we will be updating you with what we know. Sis, did you finish out all of the parts and all of the pieces?
I did finish out all of the parts.
I want to make sure that I want to thank you first of all. We like to be current. We like
Mm-hmm,
to go with the flow, and we're still here, but we're just doing more focused content, more series-based content. So that's why we're coming to you more less frequently than we had been. We want to remind you that what we do is for you, is for us, is for each other, is for what we want to see in us. We want us to be all right.
for sure, for sure,
We want us to be better than when we first started, even. We want us to be better all the way around.
absolutely.
as we continue to follow this, we'll have special guests that will
Yes.
come on that will also talk and help demystify some things. We will
Yes.
get some financial aid professionals
Mm-hmm.
that can speak to things. We will stay with you on this for at least 4 series.
Absolutely. We thank you for listening to this. What should we? Is this an episode or is this an edition? I'm gonna call it an episode. This episode of our
Mm-hmm.
series
Mm-hmm.
on student loan repayment, student loan debt,
Survivance.
surviving student loans, if you will. And we'll leave you, of course, because we are certainly an informative podcast, but we are also a comedy podcast. So we need to bring some jokes to
Oh,
round
yes.
off this serious discussion and statistical references, etc. So, sis,
Yes.
what was the funniest thing you saw about student loans online today?
Girl, you listen. The memes, sis. The
Mm-hmm.
meme. Memes is
Mm-hmm.
what got me. There was
Mm-hmm.
one meme where somebody was sitting up there. It's the famous one that we've all seen with Denzel, where he slaps the desk,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
anger
Mm-hmm.
from one of his movies. And somebody was like, I was just about to get in school today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That don't
Mm-hmm.
cover this debt though. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That don't cover it today. So don't to our people, it's also a PSA as well as a funny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't get to jumping in there today. Listen, they forgiving student loans. Hey, hey. Don't go to the office today. Okay.
This
School
this
just started, baby. Don't
this not the
don't
day, right?
don't do it. What's the funniest one you have seen, sis?
I'm loving all of these what would Jesus do memes.
Oh, okay.
And people, y'all know who would forgive the student loans?
Okay.
Jesus, because he paid it all.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, sis. There have been some funny. The Saints have went ham. Okay. My favorite one was the one where they said, "It's literally in the Bible. Forgive your debts, and those who you don't forget the debtors." It's literally a situation that covers just this. Since you Christians
Absolutely.
want to be technical,
It,
okay?
to be super
Jesus,
technical.
listen, and then wait a minute. Oh, I love the super saved. The super saved even got in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else said, "You are literally living if you profess in Jesus on a debt that was paid on a cross."
Absolutely.
Ain't that what
Already.
Jesus paid it all? Ain't heaven yours? Now listen, sis, I ain't gonna lie, it got me to thinking. They tell me that in heaven, the streets are paved with gold. Now, if I could get up there and get me just a couple of chips,
Just a couple of
we
gold
wouldn't
plates.
even. I would listen. Let me get a couple of the back steps, not the front. I'm not gonna take off the front.
Correct.
Let me get a couple of my back steps
For
that
sure.
paved in gold. You understand me? Let me
For
get the curb.
for
And you
sure.
wouldn't hear from me no more.
Wouldn't hear from me no more. But I think who takes the petty award of
Oh,
the social
dum da
media
dum.
around student loan forgiveness? We're gonna give it to the White House.
We're going to give it to the White House. Shout out to the actual, literal White House official Twitter page that has said, you know what? We have time today. Petty is in session. Sis, a brilliant strategy for whomever decided to come up with the social marketing media strategy, and also the dedication and inspiration for this episode's title, This You. Since I love how the White House official Twitter has went through and basically cross-reference with actual receipts every Republican who has had something funky to say about student loan forgiveness, student loan debt cancellation, and they have just politely shaded the hell out of them. I mean, they took it to the gutter with it.
and I'm loving it. Let's give you an
Rightfully so.
example.
Examples.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had
Ooh,
$183,000, $504 in PPP loans. Let me say that again. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had $183,504 in PPP loans forgiven.
forgiven. This
Marjorie,
you?
this you. Congressman Mike Kelly had $987,237 in PPP loans forgiven.
Forgiven. This you?
Congressman Mike Kelly, this you. Congressman Matt Gaetz had $482,321 in PPP loans forgiven. Congressman Matt Gaetz,
This you? Sir, is
y'all
this
can
you?
y'all can go on the White House Twitter and get all of this petty for these white.
Because it's too many. We don't have time. There's how many of them? 50 something of them. We don't have time. But sis, I also love the shade of it because they did not have time either. While you are pointing and pushing the buttons out here, let us remind you, this you? Sis, how is it not even a doggone conflict of interest that you receiving PPP
getting good
loans in the first place
getting good
from the
government
very
money.
and you part of the good elected officials of the governments that's saying the yays and the nays and the how much A's.
Well, we'll leave you with this song on your way out. I believe it was it the good late James Brown who gave us this beautiful song? Living in America, bum, bum, bum,
Dun,
bum,
dun, dun,
bum,
dun.
eye to
Mm.
eye.
Cross nation. Ow. Living in America. Ow. Detroit City.
Detroit City.
Chicago. Po from student loan. 51 billion. 61 billion from Cold Stone, right in the Midwest. Right in the Midwest. Living in America.
We'll see y'all next week.
Y'all going on. Get the phones a break and the internet a break. I want to check my stuff too, sis. I would just wait till next week. I figure, a little bit more will be solved out. And they need to upgrade their system now.
Yes, it's been
Because
crashing
you
all
see it.
day.
Girl,
So
they working on the IRS systems. Oh, Lord.
yes, it's always something. We will be back with you next week with our
Living
next
in
series.
America.
Bye, y'all. Peace.
The Pisces life, the Pisces life, the Pisces life, the Pisces